There is a reason why I create my backgrounds first, and it's not so it looks pretty, but to silence the fear of emptiness. My whole approach to intuitive drawing came from this one struggle. And if you have ever frozen at the sign of a blank page, then this video is for you. When I first started drawing about 25 years ago, doodling was really just a way to fight boredom. I can still picture myself sitting at my school desk, the teacher is going on about some endless math equations, my absolute nightmare, and me staring at the empty squares in my notebook. I knew I wasn't going to use the page for math, so I just started filling it with doodles instead. Page after page, little drawings kept me busy. But something surprising happened. In between the doodles, I found myself actually writing down parts of the lesson. By filling the page, I somehow managed to focus and take notes. Looking back now, I wonder, was I just scared of the blank page? Were the doodles helping me pass that anxiety of starting? Scientists actually have a name for it: the fear of the blank page, or blank page syndrome. And if you have ever felt like that, well, you are not alone. And no, I don't mean hating math. Most of us can probably agree to that. I mean the fear of simply getting started. A lot of you have asked how I create my backgrounds. And while I've shared it before, this time I want to walk you through the process. We'll make 6 different backgrounds for the upcoming projects, and I'm even going to try something I've never done before. So we'll see what happens together. I recommend setting up your space first, because this process can get a little messy. As usual, all my background painting happens in the kitchen because this is the only space in a house that has a large enough surface area for multiple pages. And since whole process takes quite a bit of preparation, I like making as many in one go as I possibly can. Whenever I do this, I begin by putting down some plastic sheet that is very durable and reusable. But you can use anything, maybe a thick enough cardboard or loads of newspapers stuck on top of each other, or old shopping bags. It really doesn't matter. Then I like to tape the edges of my paper with 1-inch masking tape. This is just my preference. You can skip it if you would rather not bother, but I do this for 2 reasons. First, I like the look of the final product with these neat, clean edges, which is much easier to frame. And secondly, it prevents the paper from moving. Now onto the inks. I use drawing inks and calligraphy inks, and everything I use in this video is linked in the description below. Full disclosure, those are Amazon affiliate links, so if you do purchase through them, it won't cost you a penny extra, but I will get a small commission, so don't be shy. I use these specifically instead of watercolors because of the vivid and bright colors they leave behind, and also because I just love how unpredictable they are. I'll tell you how I ended up using inks for my background at the end of this video. And spoiler alert, it wasn't intentional. When you begin, please keep in mind that the goal isn't to make anything neat or perfect. It's to create a messy background with no clear lines. Think of it like drawing as a child again, playful, carefree, not aiming for pretty or uniform, just a bad start. Pick any color, bold or dark, it doesn't matter. And if choosing feels hard, just close your eyes and point to whatever you land on. I like doing 6 pieces at the same time, so I don't focus on one thing for too long, because that's how you end up with something uniform. I put a few drops of ink and just smear it across the paper, one color on one sheet at the time. I usually recommend starting with 2 colors. You can add more if you like, but keep in mind that means more choices to make. And the whole idea here is to avoid overthinking and just begin. This time I'm using heavy cartridge paper because I'm trying to utilize what I have, but ideally it should be hot pressed watercolor paper. The one I normally use is a 300 GSM, which doesn't rub or bleed through. The heavy cartridge one I'm using is more absorbent, so I will have to work quick. It also likes to curl, so I'm gonna have to try not to get it too wet. In my last video, I admitted I might just be the queen of procrastination, and if you haven't seen that one yet, the link is on the screen. There are many reasons why we put things off, but the hardest one to beat is the fear of the blank page. Take my website, for example. I remember opening up Shopify and just staring at the empty screen. I was just sitting there, unable to start. So instead, I started clicking through other artists' websites, and each one looked so polished and so beautiful. Of course, I wanted something like that, but where do you even begin when all you have is a blank page? So I put pressure on myself, watching endless tutorials, telling myself it couldn't be anything less than perfect. And then I just closed the laptop. It took days to convince myself that all I have to do is just start. There are many ways to beat the fear of the blank page, and the one that worked for me was simply starting small. For example, I picked my brand colors, chose the font, and carefully selected the artwork I wanted to display. None of it was set in stone. These were just little details I could always change later. But the important thing was that I started. And at first, nothing was built. But even those small choices felt like progress. And that little momentum just pushed me forward. It didn't happen overnight, but after a few weeks of tinkering, my website was finally done. And I'm proud of it. It's not perfect, but it doesn't have to be. It's enough. If you'd like to take a look, you'll find plenty of free resources there, including digital versions of my art you can download for free. And if you'd like to support my work, you can even buy me a coffee. And trust me, it would mean the world. With these backgrounds, the aim is to cover the whole page with color, so there is no empty space left. There is no need to worry about mistakes because you really can't go wrong. Whatever you create will be a perfect base for your intuitive doodling. Just take a dry brush and spread the paint in any direction you like. And if you don't feel confident enough to start, try with your eyes closed. Remember, a messy start is always better than no start at all. And if you'd like to join me as I work on the upcoming projects, I'm planning to start a YouTube subscription soon. Subscribers will be able to join weekly live sessions where you can ask me questions, follow along in real time, or simply watch the process unfold. You'll also get access to a chat room with me where I can share updates, give you advice, and answer your questions directly. So let me know in the comments if that's something you would be interested in. Another way to overcome the fear of the blank page is to focus on the process, not the final result. When I do my art, I usually put on some easy jazz playlist or a crime podcast. Something about hearing how criminal minds work just relaxes me. Though I hope I'm not the only one who feels that way. Like my husband, he's completely opposite. He prefers silence. And I mean like complete silence. He can drive for hours without music. The fact that he's got aphantasia might explain it, but I still find it a little strange. But the truth is, everyone is different. Some people create best in silence, others need music, and some, like me, enjoy listening to stories while they work. There are no strict rules here. What matters is focusing on the act of creating, because chasing the perfect end result will get you stuck. For example, the calligraphy ink background, wasn't a process I aimed for. It was the result of just using whatever I've had laying around. I received a set of inks and some glass pens from my sister-in-law for my birthday, quite a few years ago. And I did give calligraphy a try, but never really got into it. So the set laid in my drawers for a while. One day I decided instead of buying more mediums, I will just use what I have. It wasn't really a decision, more like desperation, trying to free up some space in my little studio. And I was really just trying to get rid of stuff. So instead of watercolors, I decided to use inks for my background. This one decision changed how I create my art today. The colors were so vibrant and beautiful. The ink flowed to parts of the paper. It had no place to be, and I loved it. First, I was anxious because I did want to have a good result, and I've never tried it before. But the more I tried, the more I fell in love with the process. It is messy, but it's the ideal background for what I needed. And for this project, I decided to try using stencils. Once again, something I've never done before, but I thought it might help some of you who still struggle to get started, even when the page is no longer blank. I get it, I've been there, and it's easy to say, just start. But I know from experience, it doesn't always feel that simple. So this time, stencils it is. And to be honest, I have no idea what I'm doing here, but I did test out a few different methods, and I will share my thoughts on this a little bit later. In my previous background video, I let my kids join in and help me make a mess. This is a great method for overcoming the fear of the blank page, because they're just enjoying spreading the ink all around the paper. My kids are 6 and 7 years old, so for them, making a mess is in their nature. They did not hesitate for a second, and I had to stop myself from giving them guidance, if I'm being honest. In my latest video about imposter syndrome, I did also mention that I'm a perfectionist, and when they got started, my heart rate definitely increased. But once that initial mini heart attack passed, I realized this is exactly the point. So I let them enjoy it until they got bored of it. Then I finished their mess and it turned out perfect. Those are actually in the free background package that you can download from my website if you don't want to go through this messy process yourself. And if you don't have a printer or kids or the ink to make the background, just wrinkle your paper into a paper ball. Unwrap it and use those wrinkles and folds to get started. And if the paper looks like you just pulled it out of the bin, is there really anything that could make it worse? Here is what I've learned from this little stencil experimenting. Almost any method can work if you give it enough practice. You can use a sponge, foam brush, a regular paintbrush, or even a paint pen. It really doesn't matter. Pick whichever tool feels most comfortable for you. Remember, we are only creating a background here. This isn't about painting the Sistine Chapel like Michelangelo. It doesn't need to be perfect. And it's not meant to impress anyone. It's simply a foundation to build on. That means mistakes don't matter. And in fact, sometimes they make the background more interesting. My only advice would be that less is more in this case. Too much paint can bleed under the stencil, making it blue the lines, which, to be fair, is just a happy accident. Ensure your paintbrush or sponge is dry and try to aim for a chalky finish. And with that in mind, I would like to thank my old math teacher. Without those boring lessons and all that empty space in my checkered notebooks, I might never have started doodling in the first place. What felt like a distraction back then turned out to be the very thing that set me on this path.